Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixie Land. My name's Amy. I'm an ordained minister, and we are in Bible study. We are in the NIV. We are in the book of Numbers in chapter 30, and we're going to do all of chapter 30, so let's jump in. Moses said to the heads of the tribes of Israel, "This is what the Lord commands. When a man makes a vow to the Lord or takes up an oath to obligate himself by a pledge, he must not break his word, but must do everything he said." So now this has been a subject matter earlier in the day, so I kind of find this amusing. This is what I'm reading right now. So if you were not a Levite and you wanted to make a vow and you wanted to consecrate, like you were making a sworn pledge to the Lord to accomplish some task, that's a Nazirite vow. It's highly recommended if you were going to make a Nazirite vow, a vow to the Lord to accomplish something. You make it something that you and you alone can accomplish. Because if you can't, he must not break his vow, but must do everything he says. Remember, in one of these things, there's no alcohol, no dead bodies, so no funerals for anybody that you know possibly love. And you can't cut your hair until you finish the vow. So let's just... Now, that only is so true. That's for the Nazarite stuff. That's not necessarily, true for every Levite or anything. Or for any Christian at all. But we're in the Old Testament, and this is Mosaic law. We're still in the Torah right at this moment. There's one more book after this that is part of the Torah. And then after that, we complete the Torah. So, when a young woman, verse 3, when a young woman still living in her father's house makes a vow to the Lord or obligates herself by a pledge, and her father hears about her vow or pledge, but says nothing to her, then all her vows and every pledge by which she obligated herself will stand. Okay? But if her father forbids her when he hears about it, none of her vows or pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. The Lord will release her because her father has forbidden her. So, it's pretty clear. If she marries after she makes a vow, or after her lips utter a rash promise by which she obligates herself, and her husband hears about it but says nothing to her, then her vows or pledges by which she is obligated herself will stand. So similar arrangement. But if her husband forbids her when he hears about it, he nullifies the vow that obligates her or the rash promise by which she obligates herself, and the Lord will release her. I know, for a lot of people, that's very irritating, okay? I'm also going to remind you this is set in a very particular time period in history, and these women would have been generally kept in very secure locations, not wise to the world, because wandering about in the world by yourself could usually get you kidnapped and shoved into sex trafficking. There are still places in the world that exist there now, and people who don't live there know it's not a good idea to go there or to go there by yourself. In this case, this was everywhere, so you needed that protection. They would have been easy to manipulate. And this is to keep her from, being not just to what any man might tell her she has to be obligated to do, but in addition, because, that might be looking to trick her, but in addition to that, what as far as God is concerned, any deity might be trying to trick her, because they were meant to stay innocent. So, that requires protection if you're meant to stay innocent. Innocence always requires protection. That's, we acknowledge that now. That's why we have, first responders and police officers and people in the military, all the various types of first responders. Any vow or obligation taken by a widow or divorced woman will be binding on her, because she doesn't have anybody to say no. So her word is her bond. Just like, it would be for the men. If a woman living with her husband makes a vow or obligates herself by pledge under oath, and her husband hears about it but says nothing and does not forbid her, then all her vows and pledges by which she obligated herself will stand. But if her husband nullifies them when he hears about them, then none of the vows or pledges will stand that came from her lips will stand. Her husband has nullified him, the Lord releases her. Her husband may confirm or nullify any vow she makes or any sworn pledge to deny herself. But if her husband says nothing about her from day to day, then he confirms all her vows or pledges or binding on her. So the husband needs to do this immediately, or it doesn't count. He can't come back later and say he forbade her. He has to confirm it immediately. And I'm imagining to the person she made the vow to. He confirms them by saying nothing to her when he hears about them. If, however, he nullifies them sometime after he hears about them, then he is responsible for her guilt. Because then he took that on to himself. If he saw that it was going to be a problem, he should have, cut it off immediately. So it's either like, let it stand, or handle it immediately, or pay the consequences for her. These are the regulations the Lord gave to Moses concerning relationships between a man and his wife, and between a father and his young daughter still living in his house. Because remember, they expected them to get married at a much younger age. People died earlier, so everybody got married earlier. And you're going to find that globally in every society, quite frankly, especially during this time frame. We're talking PC era here, okay? Perspective. It's always important. Until the next video, friends.